Will we maybe see a Deadpool 4?
Oh, God, no.
I had absolutely no input into what happened.
I was heartbroken. I'm not actually making a joke at all.
It's sad not to be back with the band, but I'm sure they're going to do something incredible, and I'm sure it's going to be that much harder when it comes out and you feel like you weren't invited to the party.
And I'm really happy that no one else will have to deal with.
Because how dare you? I told him to go fly a kite. I mean, just at the insult offer.
The next day, nobody talked to me and said that I was trying to ruin this person's career.
There's a level of expectation that they have that is just not realistic. And they are adding to a set of challenges that this business is already facing that is, quite frankly, very disruptive.
They asked me to do a season 2, and they offered me half the money. I'm like, wow, it's going to take me twice the amount of work for half the amount of money. And so 8 months of my time, essentially, and to do it for half the amount. I'm like, I'm sorry.
Instead of talking to her, they decided to publicly try to shame her. They try to publicly throw her under the bus.
The Guardians of the Galaxy have finally spoken, and the reverberations are shaking Disney to its very core. What began as quiet tension behind closed doors has erupted into a public crisis. A scandal so explosive, so raw, that it exposes the cracks in the glittering facade of a billion-dollar empire. The name on everyone's lips isn't a villain or an alien conqueror. It's one of Marvel's brightest stars, a performer whose charisma and on-screen heroics have captivated audiences worldwide. He didn't whisper complaints or release a vague statement. No, he dropped a bombshell that cut to the bone, unapologetic, brutal, and unignorable. In a single moment, the calm veneer of the Marvel machine shattered. This wasn't just a moment of frustration, it was the beginning of an open war, a declaration that the carefully curated world of Disney's mega franchise was no longer untouchable. And now, one Guardian is stepping forward to reveal the full story. What they disclose isn't mere gossip, it's a chronicle of betrayal, power struggles, and corporate hypocrisy that has remained hidden for far too long.
I'm like, go fly a kite. I'm not going to go torture my body and risk, permanent damage somewhere. Especially for half the money, it's going to, no. And more importantly, I said, it's for my time. It's going to require a lot of time for me. And we didn't see eye to eye on that.
The revelations are staggering, and if Disney isn't careful, they could trigger a revolt the company never anticipated. To understand how we got here, we have to rewind. It was 2018, and the entertainment world was rocked when Disney abruptly fired James Gunn, the director who had redefined the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise. The reason? Old tweets written years earlier resurfaced. The decision sent shockwaves across Hollywood and the fan community alike. Other actors issued polite press statements, their words measured, safe. But one voice refused to stay silent. Dave Bautista, the towering figure whose on-screen strength was matched only by his off-screen integrity, stepped into the fray. He condemned Disney's actions publicly, speaking to every outlet he could access. He didn't just question the studio's morality, he challenged their very authority. And then came the moment that changed everything. Bautista threatened to walk away from Guardians 3 entirely. He was prepared to break contract, risk his career, and stand alone against one of the most powerful companies in the world. Why? Because what Disney had done was not just a business move, it was a personal betrayal. It was a signal that even the people who made their stories possible could be discarded at the slightest whim. For Bautista, silence was no longer an option. The implications of this rebellion rippled far beyond one actor's anger. While Disney focused on damage control in the press, behind the scenes, a more insidious pattern was unfolding. The studio began tightening its financial grip on talent, manipulating contract structures, bonuses, and profit sharing in ways that were quietly oppressive. CEO Bob Iger publicly blamed the 2023 labor strikes on the unrealistic demands of actors and writers. He framed the dispute as a problem created by the creative talent, painting the company as the beleaguered victim. But the truth was far from it. Disney was making record profits while squeezing the very people who brought those profits to life.
Not even really Disney, it's just the penny pinchers, the accountants. I don't even think they know who I am. They're just doing the deal, that kind of thing, most likely. Because how dare you? I told them to go fly a kite.
They blamed the workers for asking for fair compensation, a classic smokescreen that Bautista saw through immediately. And slowly, the public began to see it too. But the Guardians' struggle wasn't isolated. A parallel war was unfolding quietly, away from the cameras and fan speculation. This was a battle waged in courtrooms, legal filings, and boardrooms, fought not against rival studios but against the very families that had created Marvel's legendary characters. Using the U.S. Copyright Act, estates of iconic creators such as Steve Ditko and Don Heck filed termination notices to reclaim the rights to their work, rights that Disney had claimed as its own for decades. Disney's response was ruthless: lawsuits, legal maneuvers, and claims that a paycheck from the 1960s absolved them of all obligations forever. They wielded the work-for-hire doctrine like a hammer, aiming to crush any challenge to their absolute ownership. This was economic gaslighting on a colossal scale. Disney tried to convince the world that characters created for mere dollars had no ongoing value to their architects, that a multi-billion-dollar empire owed nothing to the people who breathed life into it. But they underestimated the resolve of these families. These weren't corporations looking for profit. They were guardians of legacies, fighting for recognition and fairness. And in the end, they won. The settlement sent shockwaves through Hollywood, proving that even the most untouchable empires could be held accountable. It was a cautionary tale for every studio, every executive, and every corporate lawyer. The cost of dismissing creators was far higher than the cost of fairness. Meanwhile, on the screen, the fallout was visible. Guardians 3 hung in uncertainty, a franchise waiting for its director to return. Disney poured millions into films that many fans considered oversaturated and creatively hollow. Over budget, underwritten, and lacking the spark that had made earlier Marvel films beloved, these movies faltered.
Implying or outright saying, you're greedy, you got $20 million, and you want more during a pandemic. But according to the Wall Street Journal, she reportedly could have missed out on something like $50 million, so a huge amount of underpayment relative to the contract.
So she sued. And Disney, the studio she helped turn into a superhero empire,
Iger himself admitted that talent had been taxed beyond their limits. Underpaid actors, overworked crews, and a system more concerned with profits than artistry created an environment ripe for frustration. Audiences began to sense it. Cynicism replaced loyalty, fan trust wavered, and morale on set crumbled. And this brings us back to Bautista. His anger was about more than personal indignation. It represented a declaration of war on behalf of all the unsung heroes, the assistant costume designers, lighting crews, VFX teams, and production assistants working 80-hour weeks for scraps while executives reaped billions. He was speaking for the people whose names never appeared on posters, whose labor built the world's fans adored. His stance forced the industry to confront uncomfortable questions. If Disney treats its stars and creators this way, what about everyone else? What happens to the people behind the scenes, the people who make magic possible but rarely get recognition or fair compensation? The consequences of ignoring this warning are clear. When a corporation prioritizes profit over people, corners are cut, stories suffer, and audiences notice. A studio that once seemed untouchable can falter, and a franchise that was a global cultural force can wobble. And when the public sees injustice, even in the form of one actor standing up, it becomes a mirror reflecting every unfair deal, every underpaid crew member, and every overlooked talent. Bautista's declaration was more than a personal stand. It was a rallying cry, a challenge to an entire system. And if Disney doesn't listen, if they dismiss this as a one-off outburst, a celebrity temper tantrum, or a temporary disruption, the next fallout may not be contained to one franchise. It could be a full-scale reckoning, a collapse that shakes the foundations of Hollywood itself. Fans are watching, creators are watching, and the industry is listening. This isn't merely the end of a trilogy. It is a warning shot, a signal that when power, profit, and ego collide, and when voices of the brave refuse to be silenced, even the most invincible empires are vulnerable. The Guardians saga is more than a story of intergalactic heroics. Behind the lights, the cameras, and the CGI, it is a story of loyalty betrayed, of courage in the face of corporate might, and of individuals standing up against overwhelming odds. It's a story that reminds the world heroes exist not just on screen, but in every person who dares to speak the truth, who refuses to be complicit in injustice, and who fights for what is right no matter the cost. Bautista's stand, The legal victories of creators' families and the unrest among fans all converge into a narrative far more powerful than any movie. A narrative of accountability, resistance, and the unbreakable spirit of those who refuse to be silenced. The Guardians may be fictional, but their fight reflects a very real struggle within the entertainment industry. A fight over respect, fair treatment, and the human cost of creating worlds that billions of people love. And as this story continues to unfold, one thing is clear. Disney is no longer untouchable, and the voices of those who build its empire are finally being heard. The question now isn't whether Marvel will survive, it's whether Disney will ever truly learn from the rebellion that is already reshaping Hollywood from the inside out. Because in the end, this isn't just about movies, or franchises, or box office numbers. This is about the people behind the magic, the sacrifices made for the sake of spectacle, and the courage it takes to stand up when everything you've built is threatened. Bautista's anger, the legal battles, the creative struggles, they are all a testament to one undeniable truth. Even the mightiest empires must answer to the voices of the people who make them possible. And if they fail to do so, the consequences will be felt not just in Hollywood, but across the entire cultural landscape. This is more than a scandal. It's a warning, a story of courage, and a reminder that heroes exist both on screen and in real life, sometimes in the most unexpected places.